Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about Ethel Cain and her record, Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You. She released that on August 8th. This is the third full-length record, we'll get into that in just a moment, for the ambitious singer-songwriter and her follow-up to Perverts, which was released in January of this year and was the record that I think most fans were hoping to finally get following 2022's critically acclaimed Preacher's Daughter. As many of you probably know, though, it wasn't. And instead, she delivered an endurance test, one that personally I find to be fascinating and quite compelling, but one that still also kind of scares the shit out of me. And hear me out on this. I know it's technically not part of the Ethel Cain canon, but it still bears her name. And in some ways, I feel like one could interpret it as Hayden Anadonia delivering a different part of her protagonist's psyche, fleshing out every corner of a mind that has captivated her audience and left them wanting more. An open interpretation could be that Perverts is maybe different snapshots of Ethel's mindset while being held captive by Isaiah. Just going to throw that out there. But anyway, about 8 months later, we finally get what we were all hoping for in Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You, which serves as a prequel to its predecessor and builds notably off that album's third track, A House in Nebraska, which is an amazing song. And this new record harbors a different mood, which really makes sense when we're introduced to a younger, naive Ethel, which I also find ironic because I think this record features what is arguably her best storytelling and lyricism to date. Ethel is just 16 at this point, falling in love for the first time with a boyfriend who shares similar emotional turmoil. The motifs of abusive families and a religiously oppressive small town that trademark her work set the backdrop for this thing, but Ethel's youthful optimism in the face of adversity creates an energy in the first half of this record that I think captures the essence of trying to find some type of light in the dark. And I enjoy the fact that where previous efforts find these ambient soundscapes that she creates to be oppressive and claustrophobic, and appropriately so to match the thematic content, Willoughby Tucker does the same, but it does so to illustrate that there was a time where Ethel held some sense of hope. Opener Janie is a heartbreaking tale of two young friends growing apart, but discovering that when one door closes, oftentimes many others open. And then there's the instrumental Willoughby's theme, which follows and is a great example of an ambient soundscape that balances gloomy synth work against other blithe elements that convey this key fact of life. The tragic flaw of both lovers does begin to reveal itself as the narrative unfolds, though, on tracks like Nettles, Dust Bowl, and A Knock at the Door, that their affection for one another is sadly born out of escapism rather than true love. And it's Willoughby that begins to acknowledge that their affection for one another can't erase the damage caused by exterior forces, by their surroundings. But Ethel is the one who maintains hope until the bitter end, setting her character up for the tragedy that we know to be Preacher's Daughter. I think that one of the most interesting aspects of Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You, is the manner in which I think the music feels influenced by Perverts. And for that reason, I think it belongs in the Cain canon as well. The overall mood of these two records is obviously very different, but I can't help but think that working on these projects simultaneously, she had to have with the time frame, it had an impact on her choice to take a different route in fleshing out these compositions and creating dissonant soundscapes that reflect the mindsets of her two protagonists. This record finds her teaming up with Matthew Tomasi once more, his longtime collaborator, developing a style that channels a combination of bands like Sigur Rós, Sonic Youth, and I think early Velvet Underground as well, all while staying true to the stylings of her early work. And it's her decision to prioritize synths over guitars in the development of these tracks that move at a glacial pace that makes these songs stand apart from previous work. And I also argue that it's clear evidence of her desire to steer her sound in a different direction while also continuing to challenge her audience. She's never been one to prioritize mainstream accessibility, but her early work, her early EPs and Preacher's Daughter are arguably more accessible with a stronger influence of pop, but also more so, I would say, indie rock and folk that comprises those tracks. With that said, though, I think that she succeeds in finding great balance with these compositions, especially with Nettles, which is absolutely gorgeous, and the song Dust Bowl. I think my biggest criticism has got to be the track Fuck Me Eyes, which stands out like a sore thumb, although I do think it's enjoyable. I would say that thematically it fits in with the numerous topics of small town America that she explores, and at 6 minutes long, it's certainly not a conventional pop track, but musically it is more divergent and I would say accessible than anything else on this record. But I do think that it sidetracks the story, focusing on a new character who doesn't really have a direct impact on the protagonist and making it feel superfluous on a record with a runtime that is almost 75 minutes. She's spoken on her fear of making pop music, but has also insisted that she doesn't want to completely alienate fans. And in a way, I think that this track serves as a means to explore that conflict. I think it's one of the highlights of it. But at the end of the day, she understands that her livelihood is on the line and she can't estrange everyone in her audience. But it does feel like that track landed on this record as a service to fans that I don't think would appreciate her overall live experience, especially as she continues to make music and pursue this avenue. This record opens up with Janie. Starts with a slow fade in that introduces a light electric riff with the faintest touch of bass working in with Ethel's vocals. I love the tone of the guitar on this track. It feels a bit like Smashing Pumpkins in the Siamese Dream era, that kind of shoegazy alternative rock feel. But there's this great tension that continues to mount as the song progresses. And I would argue it just keeps you right there on the edge of your seat, waiting the whole time because you think this thing is going to just blow up, but you can't predict when that moment is going to happen. There's vocal harmonies that give the melodies more depth at about the minute and 30-second mark, and then the melodies shift into moodier territory around the 2-minute and 15-second mark, enhancing the heartbreaking nature of the storytelling. At the 2-minute and 45-second mark, there's a vocal interlude of ooze that carries briefly into a bridge with the refrain, "I will always love you," and on into the last verse. The song never goes big though, which I think ultimately serves it well as it builds on the angst of storytelling that is just absolutely brilliant to start this thing off. Your second track is entitled Willoughby's Theme. This one begins with a loose piano melody that wanders, and it makes the track feel pensive and distracted. I love the way that this one works. There's textures that work into the background to give the track this ASMR effect, like a live recording in a bedroom, and faint, airy piano notes that are vulnerable, but also haunting. I love the way they just sink their teeth into you. Feedback fades in out of nowhere around the minute and 30-second mark to give the track a sinister, ambient edge. And this is where I really started to feel like Sigur Rós is at play. The textures slowly swell as the track progresses on a foundation of brooding, grinding synth play, and with icy piano notes and lighter textures as well swimming in the backdrop. Your third track is entitled Fuck Me Eyes, and it's going to shift the album, as I said, in an interesting and somewhat unexpected direction with bouncy, fluttering synths that intensify just a bit as the vocals enter. Then there's harmonies that follow shortly after, providing the vocal melodies with depth in a track that really embodies an 80s synth pop style. A little bit of post-punk as well. A lot of 80s going on in this one. There's soft electronic percussion that works in right after a vocal hook that works off the title and then is quickly replaced by live percussion, giving the track more form with an easygoing down-tempo pace. Heavy but subdued guitar hits just after the 2-minute mark with fluttering synth textures going to work around it. And then the next verse begins with the absence of synths and the guitar taking the lead. And then those synths rejoin shortly after as the body of the track continues to develop. And I would say that what I love is the way that Ethel's vocals soar into lighter melodies, leading the roar and the tempest of a track. This thing just becomes kind of a monster. The coda finds all the instrumentation fading out with alternate lo-fi synths and guitar play working in to carry Ethel's last few lines of the track. Your fourth song is entitled Nettles. This is definitely a highlight for me. Droning synth work that leads us into this formless atmosphere where droning strings and pedal steel that might just be synthesizers actually go to work. Then you get a soft touch of banjo that works in with some additional electric guitar work. The track builds beautifully before the lyrics enter at about the 1:30 mark, drifting along beautifully with her voice and taking moments to lift itself into wispy, vulnerable territory. That string element continues to stun in subdued fashion on a track that I would coin as hazy alternative bluegrass. The pedal steel takes over for a solo at about the 3:30 mark, with the banjo just trickling in perfection in the backdrop, and finishes with a shift in production that does give the track a bit more of a polished feel. The momentum on this one continues to build, leading into a big instrumental jam to finish with the fiddle shining in the spotlight on this one. An absolutely stunning track from her. Your fifth track is entitled Willoughby's Interlude. There's the sound of muffled voices heard as this murky, undulating texture fades in to dominate the track's formless landscape. And then a subdued, arpeggiated guitar lurks through this nebulous atmosphere as the synths begin to swell and intensify. The track does spend a number of minutes navigating this terrain before the synth textures fade, but they don't completely disappear. It's really well done, and I love the way that they just leave the arpeggiated element, which sounds like a piano at times. It's fascinatingly subtle in the instrumentation as the song concludes, and it is definitely a great segue into your 6-track Dust Bowl, another highlight, which contains an interpolation of Stars Will Fall by Duster. You got a simple guitar with familiar noise rock timbre that leads us out, with a slide guitar joining almost immediately with that. Loose rhythm enters right behind that second guitar, working with nuanced synth textures and giving the track this dusty, meandering feel. The vocals hit with gentle force and the production that gives them prominence and a cleaner tone that's in opposition to the hazy instrumentation. I really enjoyed that contrast. At the 2:15 mark, there's an instrumental break with some chimes that play in and another verse that follows, working into a brief lo-fi segment before placidly busting into this smoldering landscape that borders on shoegaze. And then at about the 5-minute mark, the percussion drops out to finish with guitar, droning synths, and the vocal refrain, Over Me. Your 7th track is entitled A Knock at the Door. This one opens with an arpeggiated acoustic guitar, and I just love the sharp sounds of her fingers sliding around on those strings. It works so well on this track. The opening line, Satan's in the state pen, is phenomenal as well, painting the dark picture of an abusive father figure, Willoughby's. An instrumental bridge joins the first 2 verses, with the second verse featuring these tranquil synth textures and serene vocal melodies. The bridge that follows is highlighted by vocalized harmonies and then doubles down the length of the first as well. And then the harmonies drop and the synths begin to intensify, bringing a darker mood to this track. There are a few more lines that are obscured to the point of pretty much just being inaudible as the track closes out. It's a really unique way to finish this thing off. Leading into your final instrumental track, your eighth song is Radio Towers. This opens with the muffled sound of an intermittent bell and white noise. There's subtle synth movement and a soft beeping noise that sounds like it's coming from a satellite. It could be the sounds that you hear in a hospital room. It's interesting. The movement and the subtle synth textures continue to evolve through the formless atmosphere, but the track stays relatively unchanged from start to finish, with the biggest shift coming from the transition of the white noise into this kind of like vacuous space-like texture. The coda is marked with an ominous build right into your penultimate track, your number 9 song, Tempest, which is this great opening with synced up staccato piano and big fuzzy synths. I love the way that those two match up. And that subtle beep from Radio Towers continues to linger in the backdrop. There are some softer synth textures that work in, but the track builds on a harrowing cinematic sensation, as if one is staring down their own ill-fated destiny. It's incredibly cinematic. The vocals enter right before the 1 minute mark as the guitar begins to take on legato form, gradually increasing in volume and intensity until the drums hit at about the 3 minute and 15-second mark, with lots of space between bass drum and a snare that features this great echoey production. I really love the percussion. The music on this is hypnotic, luring the listener into a trance until the drums and guitar drop out at the 6 minute and 30-second mark. The refrain of the lyric Forever takes hold with the synths that shimmer in gothic fashion, and with drums and guitar re-emerging about 45 seconds later to bring the track to coda and cutting out abruptly with about 20 seconds remaining. The quiet noise that finishes the track leads us right into your final song. Number 10 is Waco, Texas, a massive track, light and breezy electric guitar that takes us into this final number and working on its own for the first minute of the song. It's like a blend of light alternative rock and shoegaze. The vocals hit with significant space between the lines and gentle harmony that plays in sparsely as well. Her voice is gorgeous on this track, a bit raspy, but also delicate and vulnerable. Drums appear at the 3 minute mark, giving the track a bit more form behind the guitar, and the storytelling on this one progresses along with beautiful melodies, and the song does take a turn at about the 6 minute mark, with the percussion falling out and a droning slide working in the backdrop. And then you get a little bass drum that appears about a minute later and works through the next segment to the line, "'Cause I'd rather die than be anything but your girl," with the percussion returning to full form after she sings that. Her vocals stay breathy and weightless the further the song progresses, with the track taking on full rock form at about the 9 minute mark. It's an exceptional build to this point. It just like passes in the blink of an eye, finishing with a big instrumental jam and swells of vocalized melodies. The music fades into formless texture, with the piano taking us out and leaving us with Ethel Cain after this first major traumatic experience, I'd say, with the first person that she ever loved, and setting us up once again to lead into the story that is Preacher's Daughter. A lovely album overall, I would say. Fuck Me Eyes being the one hiccup, but again, a very enjoyable number. Kind of would have loved to have seen that as like a side project EP. It'd be cool to see her work with extended plays, kind of building this universe out and finding ways to look at other characters and flesh out different themes, different ideas, also while incorporating these main protagonists. I hope it's something she does down the road. She might have that in the works. This record, after all, was supposed to just be an extended play, but I love that the songwriting just got to a point and the storytelling got to a point where she was able to flesh it out and deliver a record that really showcases what she does so well. She's not one to shy away from an extended runtime on a project, and I don't expect that this is going to change it all down the road. Her concept of what music is, all of the elements that it can be, not just sounds that we're listening, but the stories that are told, the way that we can close our eyes and imagine certain scenes, the way that she plays them out is quite exceptional, and she continues to shine. And I would say the storytelling, as I mentioned, the lyrics are incredible, and I think that she's really just continues to dial that in and excel. And it's also a great example of, she is going to continue to challenge us. I think that she's going to be that type of artist that not everybody is going to appreciate every project that she puts out, but I admire anybody that is committed to making art on their own terms the way that she does. And especially with the challenging themes that she takes on. It's unfortunate that recent things came to light. I'm not here to judge with regards to that, but I do know that she has certainly experienced a level of trauma in her life. And I think that what's so exceptional about her music is that those things that happen to individuals, that sadly happen to people, it can be tough to take that first step, to find a way to vent all that frustration, that sadness, the loneliness, the anxiety, everything that goes along with experiencing something that one should not have to. And I think that overall, with the missteps in her music and with her life, she is an exceptional figure in the music landscape. And I hope that she continues to provide us with work that challenges our thought process and challenges our ideas of what music can be. I'm going to give this record a 7.4 out of 10, and I cannot wait to scoop up the wax, a nice full double vinyl package. It is one of the things that I do love about her as well. And I hope you enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.